Hello and welcome back. You already know where you are. You're live with us here at AWS Cloud Infrastructure Day. My name is Fiona McCann. I'm a solutions architect in the public sector, and I'm here with my co-host, Art.
Hey everyone, I'm Art Baudo. I'm a Principal Product Marketing Manager here at AWS. And we had a fun time just now talking about some of our silicon products for AI, Trainium and Inferentia, and doing a demo on that. But to follow that up, people don't just use Trainium and Inferentia directly at our regions and locations.
Exactly.
A lot of customers use this at the edge. And we have two great guests
how
joining
perfect
us
is that?
to talk about using AI here at the edge. So without further ado, I'd like the both of you to introduce yourselves. So.
Sure. George, you go first.
George Oakes. I'm a senior specialist solution architect. I focus on hybrid technologies at AWS for our customers.
All right.
Awesome. And I'm excited to be here with you. I'm Akshata Ketkar, and I'm a technical product manager working on AWS Outposts.
Well, thank you both so much for being here.
And maybe the first thing we should also do is define what edge. And both of you used Outposts. I think I may have used Local Zones as well a little bit earlier. And
let's get on the same page.
Yeah, let's get on the same page with everybody.
definitions?
What are we talking about? So Akshata, you want to talk about that?
Sure. So when we talk about AWS Edge, I like to introduce the concept of our continuum of services. So we've got our region services, which offer broad scale. And then when it comes to our edge services, we offer AWS Local Zones, which are operated in our AWS data centers, but are located closer to where our customers need them. So generally, these are in urban or metropolitan areas.
Okay.
And then we've got our AWS Outposts, which is a service that's near and dear to my heart.
Why?
Because I work on it every day. And with AWS Outposts, we deliver AWS infrastructure directly at our customers' on-premise locations. So I can give you a few examples of our on-premise locations.
I think we should. Because I think a lot of customers, when we talk about the cloud, if you go to our global infrastructure page, you can see about the regions, the number of locations where we are. But a lot of customers have reasons that data needs to be either kept in a local space, or they have latency and other compliance requirements, or latency issues, or other things where it's necessary, or connectivity issues perhaps.
Right.
It's necessary to get that equipment even closer. And using some of these services allows developers an even easier time to get started.
Exactly. So to your point, using these services gives our developers a super consistent experience. Deploying an EC2 instance in a region is very similar to your experience deploying an EC2 instance in a local zone, an outpost, or EKS hybrid nodes. So on the topic of outposts, some of the on-premise locations that we see our customers deploying in are a customer's owned data center, or maybe a co-location space that they're leasing, or even some non-traditional spaces like a customer's factory floor, or maybe their office branch. The options are endless.
And so this is taking physical hardware, driving it over, planting it in their location.
Exactly. We're delivering the same AWS racks and servers that you've got in our AWS data centers closer to where our customers need them.
And I think that we offer a variety of sizes in Outposts, right? So from a 1U all the way up to 42U sizes. So a really small system to a much larger system. So depending upon exactly what the need is in your on-premise system. So 1U maybe right on the factory floor, next, embedded in a piece of machinery, or next to it. I mean, that's how small this sort of equipment is here.
Yeah, totally. It's a super customizable and flexible offering for our customers.
And so we're here to talk about building GenAI applications on-premise. What reasons are you seeing for your customers to do that? Why are they needing to do GenAI applications specifically on-prem?
Sure. So there's a few use cases that we see for our customers needing them to run generative AI applications close to where their customers are or locally. The first are data residency use cases, data residency, data regulations, digital sovereignty, all under this umbrella, where data needs to remain in a particular location to comply with regulations. The other is ultra-low latency. So sometimes our customers want to run workloads very close to where their end users are, or very close to legacy databases or operating systems that are sitting in a particular location.
Okay. So do we have maybe we can show people perhaps a diagram or something of how they use some of this?
Perhaps you have a diagram for us?
Maybe we could talk about an architectural diagram here. Well, I think it's being able to show that connection is really key for customers, because we're going to have this unique interaction between that edge and the regions in the cloud. So maybe we can bring that up for folks
Sure.
And George, I think you put part of this together, so.
It's on you.
Yeah, well, it's better for, yeah.
What am I looking at?
No,
I see it, there's a user at the bottom.
there's a user at the bottom.
I
But if you think of it, really our edge deployment is mentioned outposts in a physical customer's infrastructure or in a co-location. And then you have local zones that are really set in metros, areas that are really in the high user population, but require low latency for use cases. This kind of gives an option of where the data is coming from, where it's stored and where it's needed. Yeah. Because especially as we look at places around the world, there are countries that insist, or even customers that also insist, I do not want my data anywhere else but in my control, in my facility, or in my country.
I can't have it anywhere else. It's against the rules for me to have it anywhere else.
Exactly.
Right. So this is an example where we can use the instances of the outposts as well as local zones, and even in cases be able to leverage the EKS hybrid nodes to be able to run services, be it an EC2 instance, be it an ECS, be it EKS. All these possibilities can be stood up in a locality that is nearest and closest to the customer.
Yeah, and I love the connection between all of the services, Fiona, that we've talked about here today.
Right.
Like, we've talked about some of that, the silicon itself, but here, once again, we're talking about EKS, which is Elastic Kubernetes Service for those who are using kind of a serverless implementation. This is a great example of this combining all of that, and also combining your data from the regions to the outposts to the cloud here. So. Now that we know kind of some of the places where somebody would utilize this, do we want to kind of demonstrate some of this for folks, George, as well? Or is there anything on the diagram that I have not called out yet? I'm concerned.
Tell me a little more about the RAG specifically, because you're saying that the data is the reason why this needs to be on-prem, right? So let's say, for example, a healthcare example where they have potentially HIPAA compliance requirements, and maybe that means that I don't know the intricacies of HIPAA, but maybe that means that data needs to be sitting within the hospital. Does this mean that you can do RAG without that data leaving the hospital?
Exactly, and just trying to show some kind of a breakdown, and this is showing an instance. This could very well be, in essence, pods that are running EKS. So just kind of use your imagination and idea around this, but this is where locally we can just go and access where the customer wants to get their data from, process it, and it never goes beyond their control, never leaves their facility or anything like that.
Combine that data with some information perhaps from the region to respond. I think one of the things that we saw in the earlier session, we were querying about, in that case, we were doing a query on a golden retriever. Right. But the key wasn't just asking about the golden retriever. It was actually the data that kept coming back that, what Yahav was showing was kind of how to specify, get even more specific, use the data to provide a better example. And it's this data, this localized data that will be fed in and combined to provide a much better response, to more determinate response to the customer.
Well, I know for many people, pets are very much like family, right?
Yeah,
so they should almost be, under HIPAA guidelines as well. So I would say if I was doing my Bedrock architecture and I was generating that image, then I wanted to get personal information about that specific.
Yeah, your dog. What color is your dog's color?
I would basically then go back to the veterinarian or the clinic and use their databases. That would be like the local RAG and information. That's how I would pull that all together so that the user knows I'm not basically going anywhere but either my country or my state or whatever my guardrails are that allows me to be where I can.
And you're getting information that's specific to you, in this case, to your dog, not just some random golden retriever or my golden retriever or something like that.
It's worth mentioning also that this is an example of a hybrid implementation model where we're leveraging both on-premise systems as well as regional services.
So can you explain that? Which pieces are regional here and which pieces are on-prem?
Sure. So in the region, this would be like, if you think of Bedrock, and probably talked earlier about SageMaker and other services, as well as the instances behind it. And the on-premise, be it Outposts or local zones, it's not going to have the 200 plus capabilities and features.
Right.
But what it is, it's bringing down the instances and the storage that are very much most critical, and the networking capabilities. So if it's a local zone, you want to be in close proximity, there's a local breakout there. You don't have to go all the way back to the region and come back. Any users that are in that environment, like for ISVs, they may have applications, or they may be offering software as a service through their AI kind of tooling or whatever they're doing to build, not just AI. They don't have to have high latency. They can have basically single-digit millisecond response time.
That's incredible.
We have a comment here from Y'all Can't Miss Us. They say, how would you use
That's
small?
me.
Is that you?
No. I like the username though. Okay.
I didn't see his hands move. So.
He was like,
Here, no hands.
how would you use small language models running at the edge?
And actually, that's where the type of instances running, or that's what's available on an outpost or a local zone, are just designed for that. You can.
Great question.
Yeah. Now, I need to. I think if we don't move here, we're not going to be able to show the demo in fullness here. Well. So maybe what we should do is give an example, give a little bit of a demo of how people can take advantage of this as well.
Let's do it.
So George.
Yeah. So really right here, just to kind of emphasize, is we have running on one of these instances, and I'm actually just connecting here to a local zone. And on this local zone over here, I just want to have a very simplified version of this. It's running set up for a sonic demo. And this sonic demo is a voice demo, just to kind of put things in perspective. But for the most part, it's designed for speech to text. But again, sonic models, you have a lot of choices in what you're going to do. But if I, for example, went in here, the front end, if I look at some of the flavors of it, basically, this is in essence a very simple web service.
Okay.
Right? So if I wanted to look at, for example, let's just do a package out of this. Okay. We can see that basically this front-end web service here, it's going to answer the request, and the first thing it's going to do is just basically leverage some of the dependencies and modules for its application to make that call back. So in essence, what's going on here is making those calls, making those streaming directional calls back to the Bedrock that's running the Nova service. And it's going to basically come back with some results and some information from that. The next thing it looks at is, in essence, in the back end. And in the back end, if we were talking about, well, where's that rag? Where's that file?
Exactly.
How do I control that? And we can see over here, just through some of the coding, this is just very simple Python coding over here. But as an example, we've taken a customer's PDF, and this can be multiple PDFs, obviously, but just a single PDF that we are, in essence, creating information as part of the vector store that it's going to be using to return the results. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
So this is the element that says I am looking for local data. And this can be anywhere in the customer's premise at this point, or in that country where it has to have guardrails of the data and where it can use it.
Okay.
And keep in mind here that George's experience as a developer is very, very similar, no matter whether he's deploying to a local zone, an outpost, or region.
Yeah.
That's kind of the beauty of our edge services, is that the developer experience is extremely consistent.
Yeah, and I think that's another reason that makes this even easier to use, and it's a great option for, if you're using the AWS cloud. A lot of our customers are going to be doing a lot of their primary work in the main regions, but now using this and deploying this in a local zone and in outposts, it allows you to develop and work within the same parameters, and as a result, it reduces kind of overall overhead and stuff like that, so that customers are able to take advantage of the cloud
Quickly.
Thank you.
Like that.
Absolutely.
All right.
Like that. So what are we doing here, George?
No, I mean, it's basically, we can go through just even a simple command. So this is actually the Quen model running out of Olama on a Docker image over here. And we're just basically showing the interaction that would take place. Like I can write a question, the language model just does a simple response here on the local database.
So you've said, hi there, my knee hurts.
Yes.
Any recommendations?
Right. So again, just the more GenAI type of information response that you see.
But this is where you can see, I think, a good example of how you might have combined some of your personal information. We're joking and in somewhat seriousness about your dog and stuff before. But once you start interacting perhaps with your healthcare provider, you may be providing a level of specificity, like I am also on this type of medication, so that a recommendation. Yeah, I have this condition. Yeah. Oh wait, then don't recommend aspirin. I don't know. I don't know this is why I'm not in direct interaction, but like
not doctors.
Yeah. So it just gives you you can envision how that localized information gets combined with the recommendation.
Right.
Okay. See, we're asking, where should you go for an appointment? Because George realizes that simply icing his knee may not solve this problem.
That's not everything.
I mean, he could have asked Fiona and I that.
I mean, we are doctors.
Yeah.
So
right. No. Yeah. I don't even have an honorary doctorate or anything.
We'll get you one after this.
I know.
The joy of the live. Okay.
Okay, so we have an error.
Maybe it wouldn't let us get the answer because I'm asking in the wrong location.
Oh, yeah.
That's always the joy of doing this live.
No, I think that's fine. Sorry.
No. I think that's what we love to see. We love to see these things happening live. And I think, if someone who is building this, is experiencing this, what would you recommend at this point a next step be? Where should they begin troubleshooting? Where does your mind go when you see this happen?
It just goes back to the code. And the nice thing is there's a lot of examples out there with our language models, with the SDKs that we provide. It's really not a heavy lift per se for someone who's really using the development tools. And of course, like QDeveloper, and that really makes ease in developing. But for the most part, you're going to look at how the socket communications, the APIs, standard stuff in that respect over here.
Definitely. A code companion never hurts.
Yeah, exactly. So, one of the things we talked about, we talked about the medical space, but do you have other examples of people outside of just the AI side of customers utilizing kind of the outposts, local zones, and the regions? Do you have maybe a couple examples of customers outside of the medical field that have done this too?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll start first. I mean, if we go broad, we can look at industries like the telecommunication industries. We can look at, especially in the ISV communities that are trying to offer software as a service capabilities to their customers. I mean, they may be on a laptop, they may be on their mobile device. All these are different ways in which we can leverage close proximity communications.
Yeah.
And I can provide the example of sports gaming. You guys know I love sports, so I'm going to want to bring this up.
I know we were baseball side talking before everybody began here.
Yeah.
So,
we were talking inside baseball for sure. But we have the sports gaming example. So sports gaming as an industry is highly regulated. And so there are strict rules that our sports gaming customers have to follow in terms of where particular kinds of workloads need to reside. And oftentimes those workloads need to reside in a particular state where they're serving their customers. And so, regions are not available in every single state, but an outpost can be deployed to any state where our customers need them. So that's a really good use case.
I think that's a great example. And sorry to interrupt, Fiona. I just want to give a plug. One of the things we do have is one of our customers, NASDAQ, is going to talk about their utilization of outposts and local zones as well. And I think, most of us have had some interaction with NASDAQ, knowing the stock services. And so some of their most important services actually run on AWS in the cloud. And I think that's a great example of, a customer that's using all aspects of these services. Well, I'm afraid we've actually running out of time here, George and Akshata. I just want to say thank you both for joining us. And
it's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, and is there any other ways or any other recommendations you want to provide folks to get started?
A lot of the information's on the internet at AWS. So.
Yeah, jump on the console and get started. That would be my recommendation.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you again, and thanks for joining us. And stay tuned for our next segment here at AWS Cloud Infra Day.